let's begin with Emma Watson because I don't know exactly how long we have Polly, and Polly has seen the full podcast with Emma Watson because that's how this all started. Emma Watson was on a podcast, and towards the end of this podcast, she spoke. She spoke her well. She wasn't speaking her mind. That's wrong to say, but she was asked about J.K. Rowling. Now, of course, J.K. Rowling is the reason why anyone knows the name Emma Watson to begin with, because Emma Watson is, of course, known from Harry Potter, and there would be no Harry Potter were it not for J.K. Rowling. However, J.K. Rowling is a feminist of the TERF variety. That's trans-exclusionary radical feminist. Whereas Emma Watson is also a feminist, but she's a feminist of the very inclusive variety, which put them at odds. And for many, 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 many years, J.K. Rowling remained silent, while Emma Watson would, for the same amount of years, drop the occasional tidbit about J.K. Rowling, as would her fellow Harry Potter cast members, kind of like distancing themselves from her, because according to Emma Watson and company, they were on the right side of history and J.K. Rowling was not. Anyway, on this podcast then, Watson spoke of Rowling in a little bit more reconciliatory terms, but she still spoke about her. And now, when Watson has reached the age of 35, and she's no longer a kid, she's no longer a teen, even though many people may think so, Rowling decided enough's enough, and now she actually spoke out against Watson, and she absolutely blasted her and put her in her place, and she did so by speaking the truth in not so many words, saying that Emma Watson knows nothing of the world and that she wants to be an activist, but she wants everyone else to suffer the price of that activism. She herself is never going to do anything of the sort. It was pretty glorious. We have a video coming about it. But Polly, before we get into exactly what Rowling said, you saw this entire podcast. What went on there? What's going on in the life of Emma Watson?
Yeah, so she appeared on Sheedy, for 2 hours and about 40 minutes. It was a podcast length, and I listened. I was traveling, so I heard it driving. I had many hours to kill driving, so this was perfect, as far as the time. That being said, that particular moment of the JK was in, I believe, like the 2 hour and 30-minute mark, like at the end of their long talk. So I have a feeling that there was probably a deal in place where it's like, I'm going to ask about JK. You can come on, you can do all this, but we're going to talk about JK at the end. In short, it really is a tale of, in my opinion, of a young person who's now 35, who's the failed promises of this wave of feminism she is waking up to, and she's trying to fight it. You could see it in every element of her life. She talks about her family, her friends, her romantic relationships, dating, riding a bicycle, writing, her spirituality, and yes, this at the end. Everything it's like she was at odds with, and she's just there's just a new kind of experience that she's having with it. There's a lot of cringe moments. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of it reminds me of many actors and artists that I've been around, grown up with all my life. You can see herself editing live in the moment, where she's just not, just being filtered, right? Just talk. Whereas you can see her thinking, the thought process. So that's those are the big sweeping impressions. The first impressions I got, you know, and so it all kind of makes sense. I think she was with a as far as her dating, she used to date a man with a man bun, if I'm not mistaken, and I think she's dating now a man. And I say that because I'm. It's like, man, did she start dating like a real man? You know, like the things that she's saying are actually, she's starting to make some common sense, you know, some sense as far as relationships and wanting a kid and family. So yeah, man, that's what I got. You know, I wanted to know what the whole controversy was and the context of the conversation. I don't know if you guys have any questions. You know.
Yeah, I'm curious about one thing because Emma Watson, she is right now famous for being Emma Watson, activist. She hasn't been in a movie for 6 years. Her last movie was Little Women, an Amy Pascal feminism rant that they tried to tell men that, guys, when you finish working, when you finish like your job in construction and stuff like that, to be a real man, you have to go and see this movie for chicks. That's how they tried to market that movie. That's how desperate they were. Didn't really work out. The movie was a massive flop. She hasn't really been in any movie since, other than some Harry Potter things where she is like credited because they use stock footage. She has directed some shorts, something like that, but she hasn't really done anything that anyone has seen for 6 years.
Right.
Is this by choice, or was she dropped by everyone and everything for some reason? Because for years now, she's just known for her activism. Is she proud of this? Is she doubling down? Or is she starting to distance herself a little bit from that life? Is she starting to realize that she was on the wrong side of history the whole time? That's what I'm asking, really.
She was in Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, and how many years ago was that?
But it's a big movie.
Yeah, and it's 7 years ago. I said the last one was 6 years ago.
I think the world is slowly changing now. I mean, I can't think of maybe in the short history of humanity that we are fighting over the legitimacy of lady penises. Like, this is the dumbest thing ever. Like, from a comedic point of view, it's hard to make fun of. It's just, really, this is how we've divided the world up. The people who believe in this stuff and the people who don't. and the fact is, as Bill Maher has said many times, the Democratic Party, until they get off this bizarro Kool-Aid, is never going to win another presidential election. I think he's right.
I don't know. That depends on the populace, though.
No, the population overall, I think, is more sane than we give them credit for. And Emma, I think, with what's happened in the UK, because she is a British citizen, with what the UK Supreme Court has ruled, with the cast review, and all these things are now piling up. Denmark, who basically invented the idea of gender care, has now backed off and said, you know what, we were wrong about it. And yeah, so, you know, apart from pockets of crazy people who are going to hold on to this for the rest of their lives because they made the decision that they're going to commit to it, Emma, for some reason, wants some rapprochement. Maybe she wants to be friends again with and this is her way of doing it.
The part that I thought was interesting, because I haven't seen the actual quotes or the whole thing yet, but that you just said, Paulie, though, that I thought was interesting is kind of some of the things that we've been saying all for a while. Is like, these are the last people on Earth who should be lecturing anybody.
Well, there's that
on
too.
Anything, right? Like, first of all, you're sitting here trying to see when they talk about their the stuff they want to do for the environment or all this other bullshit. They mean you, not them, right? Like, that's the whole thing, because they're the ones still jet setting around in private jets and doing this, that, and the other. You know, Bono's a great example of this. you know, some of the most outspoken ones.
Leonardo
DiCaprio's another hypocrite when it comes to this bullshit. What they mean is you need to sacrifice for them, right? And they're not even stopping and taking into consideration that the carbon footprint that they're leaving, if they want to really get into this bullshit, is worse than 20 or 30 people at once, right? Like, they don't even think about that. And they're dragging an army along with them. So for those people to lecture us about that kind of shit is some of the most tone-deaf bullshit I've ever heard in my life. And that's why I've never taken celebrities seriously on that. And then you add in the political bullshit that they've added to that in the last 10, 15 years, which, right, like, look, actors and have always been activists. We know that, right? Like, I mean, all the way back through till probably going back to way back when movies first started, they have been. I mean, we had the communist stuff. You had this shit all through the 60s. You had all the stuff through the 70s. I mean, now we're getting to this shit again. It was like, did actors not learn their lesson from a lot of that kind of stuff? You know, especially during the Vietnam era, like Marlon Brando and Hannah Way Jane and all that kind of shit. Didn't you guys learn then that if you start to get into politics, you're just creating not just fans, but you're creating, you know, people that dislike you,
Well,
right? Because if you're just a movie,
so really fast, I just wanted to throw this at you guys as far as, because Andre asked, you know, according to her, she left the business. That was like the big title of the podcast. You can believe it or not. I'm just telling you what she said, what was talked about.
Right.
She doesn't have representation. She doesn't have a PR company at all. She's, you know, she left it because she was going crazy as far as being Emma Watson, the activist, the caricature that had been created. That's what she's saying. And that's what was talked about. So you take that with a grain of salt, you know.
So she's saying that she retired by choice.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I can partially believe that because she did leave right after doing I mean, like Andre pointed out, she hasn't done a movie in 6 years. Sounds like she only did like one movie after Beauty and the Beast. And regardless of how we feel about that movie, it made over $1 billion. Right. That movie is one of the reasons why we've been getting nonstop Disney remakes ever since. Well, wasn't that the first one to hit $1 billion, if I'm not mistaken?
I can't tell, but I mean the bottom line is that she chose to become the darling of the UN crowd. That's where she has spent most of her time, is pallying around with world leaders, talking about these big issues while wearing sequin gowns at parties.
Oh yeah, she's a globalist, no doubt.
Yeah,
and
that's where she is.
But there was very little of that talk in this again, I'm just
probably because that would make her look bad.
You know, someone was asking, God, it wasn't an apology, right? It's not. What she was saying was basically, I can't cancel JK in this world, and yet I still, back the trans thing, but I can't in any way. I mean, she did cancel her years ago.
Yeah, she tried. I mean, if she can't, it's meaning trying.
Publicly, she wasn't as demonstrative as Daniel.
Well, I'm not saying Emma's doing this, but I mean, this is the same as a lot of these folks now who are on the other side going, well, we need to slow things down. We need to bring down the temperature. We need not to do this, that, and the other, because it's finally happening to them, right? Like, that's what I see. And I'm not saying Emma's saying this, but I've seen this now from a lot of other folks. And it's like, oh, so now you're going to pay attention to the injustices that these things
saying, turn down the rhetoric, temperature, and stuff like that. I found it interesting. I don't know if any of you guys saw this or not, because I applaud Rowling's outspokenness on the issue. I've always thought that it was genuine because she's an outspoken feminist, and of course women want to be protected against men being able to invade their spaces and so on. So it's had this protect women message the entire time, and she stayed consistent. But yesterday or day before yesterday, or when this kerfuffle was coming to light, someone asked her if she was willing to do like Emma Watson and walk back her initial, back in the 2010s, support of the asylum seekers and migrants since around 2010 and beyond. There were so many child sex exploitation, grooming gangs, and all these women, like 1,400 young girls, had been raped by a majority of non-UK asylum seeker residents in the UK.
Nicely
and her
put.
initial response to that, it was from a pretty well-known influencer, asked her that question. And she was like, "Oh, you're still here?" She didn't even answer the question. And man, the comments started saying, "Hey, that was a legitimate question. Why aren't you about protecting women?" And I wasn't sure what to think of it, because the transgender issue already is a hot topic, and the UK is putting people in jail for Facebook comments and messages right now. So it's not really a free speech paradise over there. But she seems to be very bold.
In the UK.
What's that, Andre?
Free speech is dead in the UK.
It is. And so I was a little surprised, though, that she wasn't going to stay consistent on that. So that's out there. If you look for it, there were a lot of people asking about why is she not interested in protecting girls, who arguably it's more dangerous. I think they call them grooming gangs or whatever.
They do. I can actually answer that.
Okay.
This is a point that I've made very, very often. J.K. Rowling, while she may be based on that one particular issue, she's a feminist in every other issue. She's also a globalist. She's not going to argue for against Black Snape. If anything, she's going to sign off on it and champion it. She's not going to argue against curtailing freedom of speech. She's not going to argue against all of the mass immigration that is completely changing the face of not just the UK, but all of Europe. Because these are things that she has been championing, because that's her ideology. She's also a feminist. She's just so happens to be a trans exclusionary feminist. So just because she happens to agree with a lot of people on that particular issue, she's going to have warped opinions on other issues, such as that one. Do not think that just because you agree with her on that one issue, she's going to agree with you on others.
Yeah, it seems at cross purposes, because I could imagine a teenage girl who has been attacked by one of these gangs, who is also a Harry Potter fan, who sees J.K. Rowling pushing back on Emma Watson, and then someone asking about these migrant gangs or whatever they call them, these mobs that are grooming these young girls, and what cognitive dissonance she must experience if that's the case. I mean, I don't know how.
Absolutely. Not just her, but so many, because the biggest proponents of like refugees welcome and stuff like that are the women who then go and turn their countries into unsafe places. Like, for instance, one of the worst places when it comes to grape in the world right now is Sweden. And it's not blonde and blue-eyed Swedes doing all that graping. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Still, though, women there want more. Not all women, but many of them. And they keep voting in parties that want more of that.
Well, I think certain cultures have difficulty assimilating, particularly when there's not really a way to, an effort being made to onboard people, right? I mean, I get that people need to get out of where they're, wherever they're leaving, they have to go somewhere, they're seeking asylum, the refugees and so on. But I feel like there's a whole lot of effort being placed on things like empathy and charity and just giving people.
Well, okay, let me just say that in this confused world we live in, I don't think any one individual is required to solve all problems.
Yeah.
So I'm reading her quotes here. Yes, J.K. Rowling expressed support for refugees and immigrants back, such as 2015 when she supported refugees, in 2004 where she condemned the treatment of child asylum seekers, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not requiring her to walk that back based on the updated information with regards to what the grooming gangs did. I think she's done an enormous amount of heavy lifting on the gender affirming care bullshit side. And I mean, huge. I mean, even to the point where she used her own money to create a grape crisis center in Scotland that only supported females, much to the chagrin of the
That's the least she could do after championing letting in people that.
But not in Scotland.
It's a need for such a center.
Scotland didn't have that problem.
That's right.
But
no, I hear what you're saying, Paul.
My point is one giant problem at a time. I think.
Yeah. No, I get it. I totally agree. I think that someone was just contrasting Emma, sort of walking back an initial way of thinking.
Legit question.
Right. Going back to this.
Back to Emma.
Well, just back to also to JK's reaction, because then you could say, guys, do you think Emma knew what she was doing by saying this? Because, just by saying that I love JK still, now that part of the trans community has gone after her.
For sure.
I've told a couple of people, why, if she was really had some real remorse and really wanted to make a living amends, it's just call her up and let me take out to lunch. Let's go have a talk. But you do this on a podcast. So I was wondering what you guys thought about that.
Well, I mean, we know that the catechism in the trans community, or at least the activist community, is that you accept everything or you're gone. That there's no half measure.
Well, and that's kind of what I wanted to bring up, Paul. And that's where I think it's not just that community. It's a lot of these communities on the left where I've never seen this before, where nobody can have a conversation anymore. And that's kind of the thing that it's kind of been a similar topic this entire morning, is that if you don't have an echo chamber and you're not going to do as they tell you or bow down to their mind think, then you're going to be ostracized instantly, right? And that's kind of the same with all of these kind of groups. This is the first time I've seen a lot of this in history since back in the racial divide days and stuff like that. And I'm just kind of sitting here going, how is this going to continue when we can't even have diversity of voices amongst people who claim to be all about diversity? And these are the same people crying about freedom of speech now, while they were doing nothing but stomping down free speech for the last 10, 15 years. I'm just sitting here going, the hypocrisy on so many sides is bullshit. But I do like that there's finally a bit of talk, right? And that's one thing, if anything, I mean, I get accused of a lot of shit, but a lot of times I'm just throwing shit out there just to stir things up, to get people to talk a little bit.
Well, I don't know if people are talking
too much.
I don't know if people are talking, but X is at least allowing people to yell at each other and not change each other's minds. And
there's absolutely no dialogue.
But I don't call that dialogue, but it's interesting if there are people out there who choose to read both sides. They're the ones who benefit from it. The people arguing with each other don't benefit at all. They're just yelling at each other on X. So, but like I said, if you're reading these back and forths, you'll learn more. You absorb more, about the different different perspectives.
I mean, I think there are some more centered, independent voices speaking out, not being so silent to the left.
Yeah.
However, I'm seeing a lot of doubling down from my lefty friends, from Latino groups, and it's it's not good. It's not good because you're defining yourself by media trauma, media misery, media victimization, and it's not a full picture of who we are as people, just as people. So it's very frustrating to talk to that side, and I'm gonna be honest too. Even on the hard right with some people, I find it challenging for myself because I take an issue as it comes along.
And up here in Canada, people are talking about the fact that when you're trying to get a research grant and you're a centrist, you have to fake being part of the gender identity mafia to get your money. You're just shut up. And I think that's
a true grifter. Then that's a true grift. Yeah.
it's just some poor schmuck who wants $5,000 to research salmon eggs, you know.
Yeah, but
they
you're
have
selling
to
out
jump through
on your morals.
Yeah,
though.
but
That's
well, I don't know. These are not strong-willed people to begin with. They're educators.
Okay. Well,
and they're just trying to eke out a basic living, and the government and the the rainbow Nazis have totally infected things up here, and you have to and how many people are pretending to be people they are not? How many people in the United States going for grants have to pretend to be someone who they're not just to be able to get that grant? I think that's really pernicious. That twists your personality around.
Yeah, that I think is a very, very big deal, actually, in many places, because academia, many branches of academia are rotten to the core. And if you say anything that's going to challenge certain narratives, you're done. You're not going to get your funding. You're going to have your paper blacklisted. You'll be ridiculed. So that is a thing. And you've even had like some people who did like these fake academic papers that were completely
Peter Boghossian,
for instance, and they were celebrated because the papers appeared woke and they found the conclusions that were considered desirable, right?
Yeah, their best one was toxic male dogs.
Yeah, exactly.
So, on that, in Mike Mexican, I remember back we can relate on this, is that we both used to run heavily in kind of that socialist Democrat movement, political
great pickers
worlds. No. So in the 90s, but there was always people who were like straight up commies, like they had their agenda. But was also there is that, hey, we have to take over academia, and 30 years later, that's what's happened. And that's, I mean, I left that whole end, towards the late 90s, one, because I was just perpetually broke. It's like, all right, the movement's not really doing shit for me. I still got to pay rent, and I'm giving here so much of my time. But there was there's just a lot of unhappiness and doubt and just people being awful to each other. So I was like, yeah, I gotta go.
The political change in Canada, a lot of it was generated in the 60s when the draft dodgers teachers who were draft dodgers came up to Canada and joined universities and colleges. That was a huge shift for us to the left.
Yeah, I mean, and Mikey will tell you this, man. I mean, that was always part of that plan, from like, hey, we got to change the male and the female, that whole Latinx shit. That whole talk was happening back then, to taking over academia, guys. And to a certain degree, I was always about, hey, I want the real history to be taught. I don't want anyone to feel like shit for being taught and that you're an evil person. But you take away a person's history, then that's not good either. But even back then, these guys were just going all, over the top. And of course, the real issues were never being addressed by Democrats, because that's who we're always politicking for, organizing for. And they counted on it, and they never to this day have done a damn thing about it. So yeah,
interesting stuff. So, any final words on Emma Watson before we move on?
I think in the end we should, notwithstanding JK's response, my belief is any positive change should be celebrated.
Yeah, so kudos to Emma Watson.
Well,
but, I wouldn't go that far. I'm saying from our end, with people coming down on her, I think we should. That's their fight. Well, if I can call it that way, because I don't know what they're actually doing with each other. But I think here on the outside, it's too easy to condemn what Emma has done. And in my point of view, in all of this, with how fractious and how nasty the voices are between this and Charlie, any capitulation to me is better than none.
I will say, though, I think that Emma Watson has been an extremely toxic person. She's been extremely harmful to the private life of J.K. Rowling, to the fans of Harry Potter, and to society at large, because her activism, I think, has been very harmful. And if she is starting to get to the point where she understands that this was bad and good for her, but actually I think that she needs to be held accountable, and so does everyone who
how would you do that?
Well, how JK responded, that's how.
Yeah, exactly. How she responded.
Yeah, that was a great response.
I think that was a great response, that she needs to be confronted with the fact that you are an extremely privileged person, and the activism that you have championed is harmful to other women who aren't as privileged.
Sure. But do we put her in stocks? Like,
what do you mean? Like, she has put herself there, and she took on a very public role where that became part of her persona. I think it's not just her. I think David Tennant, everyone else that championed as hard for that cause, I think they should publicly apologize for it and admit the error of their ways. Now we can move on.
I'm like, if you really are sincere, right? You've come to some to some place of acceptance of what you've done on a public forum. Then go to that person and make a living amends. Then maybe you can go talk, do a public statement, all this stuff. This was a little bit and I get her type, man. Like I said, but I would. This is just me, just my opinion, Paul. She should have just called her up, say,
yeah,
hey,
I agree.
Can we go have some lunch? I'd like to talk to you. That is a true sign. It's not easy to do. It's like, because you know what? They could say, no, fuck you. It's like, all right, well, I tried. But
here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
I think there's one other side to it, because if Emma Watson were to be seen in public with J.K. Rowling, if she were seen to make any kind of such amends,
interesting,
that would get her cancelled, now wouldn't it? I think there's an element of that to this, and maybe that is why she didn't want to. I'm not defending that, but again, that's why I also think that she really should be called out on what she's doing. I think that's completely fair. I think J.K. Rowling did it in a fantastic, brilliant way, and it should be done with many, many others.
And just so if the audience hasn't seen or read what she said, like, just to paraphrase a little bit, is that JK said, when I was 20, 24 or even a kid, I wasn't a millionaire. I was broke. I wrote these books that you have benefited, that you are privileged. It was a great response, guys.
It was totally. It was an absolutely brilliant response.
This clip was taken from Midnight's Edge in the Morning, which streams live every Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time on the Midnight's Edge main channel. There you can send in your live questions and comments before clips and full stream replays are uploaded to Midnight's Edge live archives. We are also on Twitter, Rumble, Odyssey and Facebook, so smash that like, help share, subscribe and join us.